So Kids on Bikes is a local nonprofit here in the Pikes Peak region that's focused on providing access to bikes to kids that otherwise don't have access to a bike, but then also making sure that they have opportunities to ride and to learn all the bicycling education that is relevant to their age and where they live and the type of riding that they're going to be doing. So I got my start as I have a background in social work.
Okay.
And I was helping youth who were exiting homelessness. And the organization I worked for, and to back up a little bit, I'm running supportive housing. So I'm getting youth back on their feet into their own apartment, and started to realize that a bicycle really makes a lot of sense for different things like transportation, going out, finding a job, getting to and from the job because our bus system was pretty poor. And then also just the dynamics of which, I personally experienced from a mental health standpoint. Bicycling is fantastic. It's very accessible and you can just feel so much better when you're riding. So seeing all these youth that are having these struggles with life in general and have a lot of barriers in front of them, my coworker and I started a bike program there so that kids could earn a bike of their own and use it for however is going to help them get back on their feet. So I got my own start as a social worker through that lens, and I still carry that into everything I do to this day, for sure. And then I got started with Kids on Bikes, the local organization, back in 2013. And I started just part-time, seasonally focused to do the after-school Earn a Bike programs and to start the summer bike camps that we now run as well. And then by the end of 2013, I went full-time at Kids on Bikes, and then we became a staff of 2 in the organization back in 2013. So yeah, it's such a big question that, more or less, no matter what city you're in, small town, rural, every kid not only deserves the opportunity to own a bike, but I have yet to meet an adult who doesn't remember where they were, who taught them to learn to ride a bike for the first time, and kind of that at least understands that it's a rite of passage for kids, more or less, right? It's, there's a first day of school, there's prom, there's a few milestones that we typically think most kids should experience and have the opportunity to experience. Riding a bike is one of them. So even if the adults we're talking to don't currently ride or wouldn't call them a cyclist, they still get why it's important. So across the country, childhood obesity was on the rise in the early 2000s. Reports were coming out about childhood obesity is on the rise. So a local group here in Colorado Springs started Kids on Bikes in response to that. And a lot of groups throughout the country mirror those same values of it's for children's health. And the bicycle is just a really unique tool that is not like other sports because you can truly use it for transportation. It's recognized as a mode of transportation. But you can have so many different outlets with that bike. You can do BMX, freestyle, mountain biking, the velodrome. You can do so many things with a bike, and it can open up a whole new world of activity for a person. And at least teach them some healthy habits and things like that. So every community also has youth like that I served that are experiencing mental health issues, socialization issues. There could be a number of different issues. In fact, we could go alphabetically. But the bicycle can help in just about every instance. In fact, I can't really think of one where physical activity is not recommended, of course, unless they're in recovery at the hospital. But so there's all kinds of reasons why you would want to introduce the bicycle for kids at any age. And that's really young, when they're developing at a really rapid rate, all the way up to 18, 19, 20 years old, where they've really got to start making some choices on where they want to end up in 5 years, right? And how the bicycle can be a part of whatever positive trajectory they might want to put themselves on. So communities at large more or less see most youth still struggling with physical health in some capacity. Across the country still, they're spending a lot of time in front of screens, less time outdoors being active. And so it makes sense within the context of just about any community, more or less. Yeah, so there's a handful of factors that go into making a decision to do something about an issue. And, in this case, it's about identifying where is the gap, or where is the problem. So maybe there are services similar to what we do at Kids on Bikes, where we are focused on kids getting access to bikes, learning how to ride, and then just opening up the world of bicycling. We're not coming at it from a competitive standpoint. We're coming at it from a standpoint of, it would be great if every kid rode their bike to and from school at minimum. So it's, in some cases there's a gap in services for youth, and it might be that there is nobody nearby who's helping kids get bikes, whether it's through a bike giveaway once a year or whether it's through, earn a bike programs like ours. It's identifying where the gaps are and for what ages. And then there's who are the partners you're going to have, because it is very difficult to do everything by yourself. And we have not been successful without a lot of partners along the way. So that's local bike shops, other organizations that serve youth. And it also comes from, a lot of people who have a lot of wisdom, not necessarily about bicycling necessarily, but how to just stay focused on what your priorities are and how to come up with everything from a big grand mission statement to the practicalities of who's going to do what, who's going to manage it, and is it realistic, and all those kinds of other things too. So even if it was one independent solo person, that person is going to need support from a mentor, from volunteers, from you name it. And so it's just a matter of identifying, well, the kids in my town, there's nothing like this nearby. And it might be an app, it might be something that is more like a place to even ride in the first place. So if we got a bunch of kids, a bunch of bikes, big deal. Where are they going to ride them? They all live in an apartment and there's no place to ride anyway. So what's the big deal, right? So it's kind of thinking it all the way through to know, well, where and how do you fill that gap? And then you go into those next steps of, well, then how do you sustain that type of things? Is this a one and done? Is this a ongoing thing? If it's ongoing, how do we make it ongoing, and so forth? So it's a matter of process of really kind of mapping out, knowing the landscape, and in the context of every perhaps densely populated neighborhood or a big rural area, there's factors to consider on what does a nonprofit entity like us look like, right? And what is its purpose? What are its programs going to look like? There's this old saying that is no money, no mission. So you can have a mission statement, you can have the cause and purpose, but if you really don't have money to get it done, it's wishful thinking, right?
Yeah. So
sometimes there's grant opportunities that maybe another organization has, a big pot of money, and it might be a school district that has funds that's not bicycle specific, but it's for extracurricular activities, that's for physical activity. And then you make the case why, that should be bicycling, and here's why. And that funding can be part of what launches a new effort. And there is a lot of funding out there that does look at national focus type things, like Safe Routes to School, for example, or Live Well, or, you look at an entity like Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, places that serve youth, they have funding, or if they don't have funding, they have the ability to write a grant that helps launch a new program, right? So that goes back to the partnership piece, that it's going to work because of a partnership, more or less, or it ultimately will. And partnerships will come, maybe it's not even in the inception, but to evolve things and to strengthen programs, partnerships are going to be key. So it's kind of like, from a cycling standpoint, if you pay any attention to the Tour de France, there's a lot of people behind the scenes making it happen. And it's an individual effort, but it is a team effort. And there's so many people behind the scenes. And there's a trainer for all those elite riders and all that stuff. So nobody's really gonna do everything all on their own. Yeah, that just doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Finding those partners, is it easy? It's probably easier the more established you are. I'm guessing it's more difficult when you're first getting started to like sell your mission when you don't have any history to show them yet, even if you've got good ideas.
Yeah.
Was there any struggles in approaching partners and potential partners with stuff like that early on?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and it's a good point. Kind of similar to a bike mechanic, where you gain people's trust, and it starts with building trust and credibility right away and follow through. Hey, we come knocking on your door. You're a low-income school. We want to bring bikes to your school. If you let the ball drop and you're trying to start, it's going to go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we won't work with them because they didn't follow through. You know, the same would go with a mechanic. If you're not going to deliver for a customer, it goes the same way, right? That trust and credibility starts. So it does, if there's nobody doing anything like you, it's easier, you know, to at least be the first one to bring that to the table. So let's say you're sitting around a table with a lot of people who are invested in making lives better for youth and families in the area, and nobody's brought bicycling into the fold yet, then, well, you've got a little bit of a leg up. But if there is another bicycle entity over here doing it like this, but there's still a gap, it's building that rapport and that trust to understand that we're here the same reason you are. We're going to complement. We're going to, you know, all ships rise together, and selling that partnership and that value that you have, not necessarily selling your programs, because I know of many programs, ours especially, have evolved over time. You're constantly listening to the needs of your community to tell you what is needed. Like, well, yeah, we got all these bikes in the neighborhood, great, but there's no real safe places to ride. Now that becomes a charging, driver for our organization. You're like, yeah, you're right. So that's next on our to-do list then. Thank you for telling us, and we're going to respond to that and try to make bicycling more accessible in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I've seen you do that a lot recently.
We're working on it. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
That's a big one, man.
It is.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that where if somebody else is already doing something similar, it's okay to approach them like, how can we complement you?
Yeah.
Not so much we're trying to take over, but how can we both make this whole thing better for everyone?
Totally. And being sensitive to that. And, it's, we have been in the Pikes Peak region, we have done what we do, and there aren't many others necessarily even really doing it. Yeah. So it's different in that because the way our city has sprawled, and so within the context of Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region, it's a sprawling city. We don't have a huge, dense urban core area where the youth would come to us in one place to do an earn a bike like they would in, downtown Denver or much larger cities where earn a bike programs do take place. For us, it's more, there's a few other efforts that have gone on, like the Bob Tomas Christmas giveaway, for example, but it's more about Christmas giveaway, and bikes are a part of it. And it's like, okay, how do we complement that? How do we work together with them? And then there's other efforts where this teacher just started realizing they need bikes. And I did the same thing. I was legitimately one of those people in the community going out looking for bike donations, getting people to volunteer time to fix up the bike so that the youth that were exiting homelessness at 18 years old could earn a bike, right? And then I realized Kids on Bikes is doing something like that in my town. Okay, and so I immediately started building that relationship. How can we complement each other already? So let's complement each other more. What are you working towards in the next year? Here's what I want to do. And immediately started that conversation back, that was back in 2010, 2011, roughly. So yeah, back to your point about working together. Yeah, it always ends up working out better in the end for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Really considering the resources available, but also the ages. So programming for young kids looks way different than middle school, which also can look different from high school. So we've got, a more or less PE focused learning to ride. In fact, by the way, we partnered with All Kids Bike, which is Strider Balance Bikes launched a foundation. They developed a curriculum. And so rather than reinventing the wheel like we were going to and already started, was, oh my gosh, they've created the curriculum. They're doing what we want to do. Okay, so you guys start. We're going to bring this program into PE schools now. And then when they get all these kindergartners and first graders to ride a bike, we'll do everything from third grade on, basically, is kind of the goal now with different schools. So later today, I go to Frontier Elementary School because they're launching that program actually up there. Cool. So it's awesome. But to that point where you have to consider the age that you're working with, and then what training has to go into place. Because if you are going to do it to help build that trust and credibility that you need, is to also come in with the credibility of, hey, we've gone to these trainings, we understand things from this standpoint. And for us, we've had our staff, myself included, become a league certified instructor. So the League of American Bicyclists, mountain bike camp instructor certifications, everything that we can do to be the expert as best we can, that is what we do for sure, because that helps you plan appropriate programming based on age, where they're going to ride, and things like that. That's where, to a point I made earlier about how we would not have been so successful without partnerships, comes into play. Because what we do now is we train people and leaders within the neighborhood, within the school or community center, whoever we're partnering with for an Earn a Bike program, or any type of program for that matter, is that they have the trust of the families. They know the family dynamics. So rather than being this obscure entity that comes in out of the blue, out of nowhere, hey, we want to help you. We want to provide something for your kid. And they're like, okay. Any amount of skepticism might just go, okay. But if you partner with the school and then the school says, hey, we've got this great program and this great partnership, and they do the selling for you, done. Because the family trusts the teacher. They already know them. They have the rapport with them. It's not like you're doing door-to-door sales, right? Yeah. Whereas that's how it could potentially be perceived if you're just trying to go in and come in with a we're here to save the world mentality.
Yeah, especially people that have had it rough most of their life. Most people that promise big things are really not their friend.
Yeah, and they're gonna be more skeptical for good reason. You'd be wasting time to be offended by that. Yeah. You got to understand that. Well, they don't know you, so why should they just trust you all of a sudden? It doesn't work like that, right? So it's, well, who do they trust? You build a relationship with them so that they can advocate for you. They can, you want to be the person right outside in the hallway waiting and ready for that invite to come on in now, right? So it'd be like, okay, yeah, we're ready for you now. You can come in and join the meeting. You don't want to be presumptuous and come in and just take a seat at the table saying, well, we're here to break. We know what we're doing, so you should just listen to us. Yeah.
That's a real issue with a lot of people
for sure
doing charity work.
Yeah, it's huge with all the partners that we have. They know the people way better than we do anyway, right? Yeah. And it's been our partners that have helped make us successful, without question.
Yeah, absolutely.
If somebody were in a rural context, you're more looking at county-related things, and if it's more of a small town and everybody knows everybody, everybody's going to have more influence on the success. For us here, this local government is a big deal because when it comes to providing better, more places, new places for kids to ride, got to have, city parks is where we look a lot of the time, right? So we've got to have a good partnership with the city. And then there's departments within the city. So everything from bike lanes to park design and things like that, it plays a huge role. And you definitely want to be in the know of what's going on, or, you know, what's the impact going to be for bicycling. You know, so it's far more long-term type of stuff that you got to be aware of. So here in Colorado Springs, local city and even specific departments within the city are key partners too. You know, way different partnerships. But then there's the community centers. So 3 of our most long-standing Earn a Bike places are 3 of the community centers, which fall under the Parks and Rec department. So city staff are volunteering to help run our program, and we're working with the city to do actual program implementation as well. So it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. And then, of course, you scale that upwards to when there are ballot issues to consider, and what's the impact of that going to be on the neighborhoods you serve. And if you have the trust and credibility of people, they might pay attention to understanding, well, if I do vote yes or no on this ballot issue, what is going to be the impact? Because again, can I trust it? I don't know, but I trust you. So maybe if you say so, I'll consider it, kind of thing, right? So yeah, that local government stuff can play a huge role. It can even be, I wouldn't say it wouldn't make or break programming, but it certainly is pivotal.
Yeah, it could be a big compliment to
a very big compliment, or a huge barrier.
Yeah.
Right. It really could be a huge issue that, I have a hard time understanding where that, to like make an example out of that, but more or less it'd be like, kids if in a local city, kids were not allowed to ride on the sidewalk, which could be the case in a city where bicycles are not allowed on sidewalks. Well, it's also not safe for kids under the age of 10 to even think about riding in the street. So what do you suggest we do then, right? So then you really your local program, it's like, man, before we even do programming, we got to address this bigger issue first,
Like some of the parks that you guys have pulled off, wouldn't happen without the city behind it for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Those programs that they didn't go through, they definitely wouldn't break what you guys do, but they're super cool, and it's a really, really nice addition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that.
COVID was an interesting one. I know you probably, but no, truth be told, those unexpected things can be big and small. A small hurdle sometimes is just staff turnover. So when we have a partner PE teacher, for example, and that PE teacher retires or takes another job or something like that, well, we're not entirely starting from scratch, but we've got to go back to square one and say, all right, now, is there somebody else within the school that wants to help take this on? Or, so turnover is a thing, right? Community centers as well. You have a really good cheerleader to help sell this bicycle programming stuff. They leave. All right, you got to start over again, right? Sometimes. But then on far bigger scale, when COVID hit, thankfully we had the opportunity to immediately create an online Earn a Bike program. So everything we would have done, okay, fine, we got to do everything online. We'll do this online too. And we had a lot of kids that were signed up to Earn a Bike in the spring of 2020. We still got 22 bikes earned by youth because we were just able to still connect with them per schools saying yes, that we weren't, couldn't be there at school. And everything was so shut down that it was like, okay, everything's online. And when we drop off a bike, we're in masks and we just legitimately bring them the bike they just earned by doing all these tutorial videos and fun stuff like that. So we still didn't have to compromise our values about earning a bike and not just doing giveaways and handouts. But we were able to pivot really quick. And we still now consider ways in which using the online Earn a Bike still actually makes sense sometimes. So yeah, as far as staffing goes, when Kids on Bikes was founded back in 2005, it was entirely volunteer driven and staffed and done all the work with a small group of volunteers. The founding board members and volunteers, I mean, honestly, it was a core of about 8 to 10 people. And there was no paid staff until 2009. So for the first few years, it was all volunteer-led stuff. And they got a lot done. They definitely got a lot done. They established the initial curriculum for the Earn a Bike program. They tried one program, realized it wasn't that effective and wasn't quite what they wanted to accomplish. They changed their name, actually. Originally, it was Bikes for Kids. But that name was taken somewhere else, but then they came up with Kids on Bikes, which is way better because you could tell, where do you work? Yeah. Kids on Bikes. You could also kind of tell what I do. They're like, oh, I bet I know what you do. Yeah, it's good branding. It's a good name and logo. Yeah. Anyway, this logo was actually drawn up by a kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then, so then there was just one paid staff member for a few years. In 2009 to 2011, new executive director came in. She was the only employee until me. So then we were a staff of 2. Now it's great. We have a full-time staff right now of 8 people year round, plus about 25 seasonal staff for the summer bike camps that we had. So that summer program aspect of what we do has grown significantly. And so we have 25 seasonal coaches there. Typically when we're running full throttle, we had 9 full-time staff. Then we have well over 200 volunteers throughout the year in every different little dynamic of what we're doing. So the community bike center that we call the pedal station, summer bike camps, Earn a Bike, family rides. There's volunteers for all of that to make all that happen. And that is, it's well over 200 people. I think it's 150 just for the pedal station alone. So, we have a lot of volunteers to kind of keep up with all that momentum and that growth and keep it going. And so now we just do more because we have more, right? Building that, building the infrastructure, building the structure in general, and now the governance from the board is a lot less hands-on. They're far more, stay at the 10 to 20,000 foot view and help out on separate committees to help the organization run. So we have 11 board members right now as well. So, yeah. So I'll preface this with, we completed a 5-year strategic plan from 2015 to 2020 to open the pedal station, open a community bike center, to grow camps a bit and to offer more scholarships for those camps and the camps in and of themselves it helps create revenue for all the programs and everything we do for free. So does the pedal station. So getting all that launched was kind of, in the cycle of a business or nonprofit, you have startup, growth, it's stabilization, and then it depends, you either grow again or you decline. We were definitely in that startup within the last few years with the pedal station, bike camps, everything like that. So the next 5-year goals and the strategic plan that we just finished this year is to really stabilize a lot of things, have very conservative mindset around growth. Like, okay, it'll be bits of growth here because the momentum's already established in that way, but we've grown the number of partnerships. We've more than doubled it. We had 6 key partners for Earn a Bike way back when I first started, and we have 31 partners now because we've been able to change the whole program model and just do so many things differently. So now it's about stabilizing all of those and, having, rather than growing more, we're focused on having a deeper impact. So diving deeper into every neighborhood so that if we were serving the 5th grade audience really well, what about the younger kids now too? What if we got all the kids to learn to ride a bike by the time they were in 3rd grade? now we can take that 5th grade programming and take it to the next level. And then in some cases, we're now offering programming for high school kids to learn bike mechanics. They can see this now as a true, I can make a career out of this. I love working with my hand, riding a bike is cool, but I just love fixing things. And having that program avenue open up, it's been amazing. So we've got a lot of new program initiatives, like I just mentioned, as well as just overall stabilizing the organization. So I would leave it with the final question about, kind of just one last piece of thought or something to chew on while you're riding, is that you should always dream big, but start small and know how to do that. So dream big and just start small, little bits along the way. There's so many fun analogies about riding a bike that starting something like this or doing something like this just complements so well, because the bicycle really is that amazing. And that, it's about seeing where the gap is, or kind of those things I hit on earlier, but knowing that it takes time and to be patient with the process and everything like that would definitely be key as well. There was another thought I had about
last point.
What's that?
I feel attacked on that last point.
What's that?
The patience part.
It's tough though. Well, that's just it.
Neither one of us like to go slow.
No, drive very hard and fast. No, patience is easy when you think you're being patient. It's when you're really forced to be patient that it's okay, fine, all right. So yeah, I would say, I've learned a lot through making mistakes. Just like when you crash on a bike, you probably have learned something about what not to do, what to do differently, or fix or repair or whatever, right? That learning from everything that didn't quite work is fantastic. That's often the best tool for sure. Well, I would always welcome somebody who was curious about anything I said or is in a place of thinking about something. Contact me. My email address, will make that available so that anybody can reach out no matter what. I talk to a lot of great people doing a lot of great work all over the place, all over the state, other parts of the country. I mean, there's a lot of good work to be done out there, and it's worth doing. So I would definitely talk to anybody who is interested about next steps or thoughts or bounce ideas off of. I love sharing feedback, or just, well, here's what we tried and did not work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just love what you guys are doing, especially for kids that grow up with nothing, because a bike really is life-changing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it.
I think a lot of people don't realize what poor actually looks like, and how big of a deal a $50 to $100 bike would be to a kid that has nothing.
And especially when they earn it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I personally experienced the differences between giving them something because you feel bad and they're in a tough spot and everything like that.
Yeah.
They do not value it the same way as if they have any skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
To make any skin in the game is way more valuable than the handout type of thing. It's a detriment on both sides.
Yeah, and even if the skin in the game is just a little bit of time.
Yeah. In the Urban Peak Bike program, that's now called The Place.
Okay.
But that program for the homeless youth, I had them volunteer. So if a bike got donated, it was $150 value, right? It's an old Specialized rock hopper or something like that. I would say, well, here's about a bike like this would sell on Craigslist, $150. So for every hour you volunteer, I'll give you $10 credit. So you go volunteer for 15 hours and bring me back proof of that. And they would go to Restore or the Soup Kitchen. They would volunteer the places that they get help from.
Yeah.
In some cases even, or just around I had them go pick up cigarette butts in the courtyard area, whatever. But they would earn that bike. They were so protective of it. versus the other kids who got it and pawned it 2 hours later and came back and gave me a story that it got stolen. And I was like, and then another kid goes, yeah, he pawned it and he bought some weed. Oh, damn it. Like, no joke, true stories.
No, I
True
can
stories.
absolutely see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so when I made them earn a bike by volunteering, and then that's where this partnership came in.
Mm-hmm.
I had the youth of Urban Peak volunteer for Kids on Bikes.
Mm-hmm.
They did the bike builds for
Cool.
Kids on Bikes. So the bikes that the kids were earning, they were these pretty decent, like hardtail Giant, I think, mountain bikes.
Yeah.
So Urban Peak Youth helped put them together, right, with the help of some volunteers and everything like that. But that's how they earned a bike, the Urban Peak Bike program and everything too, which was really fun. So
Nice.
we had homeless youth volunteering for Kids on Bikes to earn a bike of their own, and it was pretty cool.
That's kind of a everyone wins sort of scenario.
Totally.
Yeah. Isn't they probably learn some skills they didn't have? And
Exactly. Yeah.
especially if you're poor, learning how to fix stuff is huge.
Yeah. And then that's what for me made me go, this is what I want to do full time right here. Like
Is that
this
what
is
you
all
did?
I want. Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, housing is very important, but I wasn't passionate about that as much as I was about the bike stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And just like what it's really doing is teaching them responsibility, and it's teaching them not to be afraid to pick up a wrench, you know.
Yeah,
things
and
like
the
that.
bike stuff can lead to more opportunities to earn money traditionally, where you can more easily afford housing, and
Right.
it can break down a lot of barriers. Like,
It can.
Like I know a lot of people, oh, it's just a toy. They're just bikes.
They treat it like that too. They think of it like that, but
For somebody with nothing, it's everything. Like
Mhm.
there's so much. Yeah. So I appreciate what you guys do, man. Genuinely think
You as
appreciate
well,
it.
dude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the support. You're always
My
so
side's like the
supportive.
polar